call the Board of Zoning Appeals regular meeting of Tuesday, August the 2nd, 2022. To order, please. Roll call.
Kevin Skaggs.
Wes Summers.
Bill Burkhalter.
Each of you got a copy of the minutes. Get a chance to look them over. See any moves or changes on them?
I didn't.
Then they stand approved. Can we confirm the agenda, please?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Agenda is confirmed. I will say that two of our commissioners will not be here tonight. Mr. Newman had to be out of town on business, and Ms. Stallworth's husband came home from the hospital, I think, today, and that's a good thing, so she's not going to try to make it tonight. But we do have a quorum, so we can conduct business. Okay, tonight we have 3 requests. The first one is, I guess I better get my eyes out to read this. Is ZV22-010. It's a request by Larry Meister to allow for front and side setbacks that exceed the maximum allowed by the Georgia Avenue Overlay District standards for the new D Downtown Mixed-Use Zoning District. The application affects a proposed townhome development on plus or minus .17 acres, Zone D, Downtown Mixed Use, located at 231 West Avenue, Tax District 007-14-10-001. First of all, we'll have a public hearing, and the purpose of the public hearing is to receive public comment on the application, and then we'll have the consideration, which is be considered, the application will be considered by us on the Board of Zoning Appeals. So with that, I will open up the public hearing. Mr. Paradise, what can you tell us about this, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Section 3.3.3.5. That defines the downtown mixed-use district, which this is located in, requires that all buildings conform to design standards established for the Georgia Avenue Overlay District or the Neighborhood Preservation Overlay District. In doing this, basically the designer has to choose one and build to those designs. In this case, the designer has chosen the build to the Georgia Avenue Overlay Design Guidelines. However, in choosing those, he has a minimum of a 0 front setback and a maximum of a 5-foot front setback. And he's requesting a variance to allow that to 20 feet. And then the minimum side setback is 5 and 10 feet. And he's requesting that to be from 0 to 5 feet, so that he does not adhere to these portions of the Georgia Avenue Overlay District requirements. He's asking for a variance from those. And it is to build townhouses. You see here, a lot. Mr. Burkhalter, if you was in traffic on West Avenue, you was probably by it on your way to the meeting. Give you an idea of what it looks like. And this is the design. It's my understanding is that, and the applicant is here, is it's 4, I would call them brownstone type houses. There's 4 apartments. Each apartment is 3 levels or 3 floors. You see the site plan on the right, and there is no on-site parking. The on-site parking is not required because he's building to the Georgia Avenue design guidelines. They're not required in the downtown. by those guidelines. If he were building to the neighborhood preservation zone, he would be limited to 2.5 floors in height. And there's another sentence in there about the average pitch height of the roofs. And I rode by that street today and looked at the average roofs along that street, and I only saw 2 flat roofs. One was on the dance, one was across the street on another commercial building. So my interpretation would be that it would probably be required to be a slope roof if he went with neighborhood preservation as well as requiring parking and limited to 2.5 floors. So that may be some of the reasons for the choice of going to George Avenue design guidelines instead of neighborhood preservation. But he can address those to you.
Any questions of Tommy? Bill?
No question. Well, one question, and I think I know the answer to this, but on the George Avenue side, the 5-foot sidewalks are part of the right-of-way.
Yes, sir.
Most of those are 0, or close to it.
Yes, sir.
So we're just assuming, right, and probably right, like he said, the 0 lot line will be right at the back end of the sidewalk.
And I wouldn't necessarily say that. You've got a survey here, so that would help you a little bit. Looking at that survey, it looks like it would be right on the back side of the sidewalk. Sometimes you've got about a foot or so between the actual property line, but the sidewalk's always in the right-of-way. It's just a matter of how much is on the other side of it.
So the zoning allows him, if we, and I'm not saying by any stretch of imagination anybody's gonna turn him down, that's not what I'm just trying to figure out a couple of things here. He could build exactly what he wants to do without getting the variance for the different setbacks. He may not be able to build it exactly as he shows now, but he can build 4 apartments back there, can he? Go back up to the 0 lot lines? To the front?
Yes, sir.
Am I wrong on that?
He may still need the side yard variances, and he would lose the trees in the front. And that's my understanding of why he wants the variance, so he can save those trees in the front. But yes, if he could build that with the side yard variance and not needing the front yard by moving that up.
But I mean, he can do that on his own without a variance to go to 5 feet, 0 to 5.
I think he's required to have 5 from the side.
Okay, I was talking about the front.
Front, yes, sir. Front 0, but the side he wants to go from 0 to 5 to 5 to 10.
Right, I understand that.
And
Okay.
I think that, and again, he can answer this, but looking on the diagrams, you see the balconies. I was trying to think of a fancy word. I was going to say porch, but the balconies off the side that will probably encroach into those setbacks.
So this variance is just basically, without the variance, the building just shifts. If he didn't have any variance.
The building would shift, and he may still need the side yard variance. But he would not need the front.
Okay, that's good. Builder, developer, you'd like to say something? Come on down, please, come down. State your name and address, and I'll swear you in. If you'll raise your right hand, please.
My name's Chuck Byrne with EMC Engineering.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. You're who again?
Chuck Byrne
Chuck?
with EMC.
Burns.
I'm the site design engineer for the project.
Okay, so what can you tell us about it?
That's essentially like Mr. Tommy said. I mean, it's a 4-unit apartment building, 3-story. And you were correct with essentially we can build this same building and just shift it forward without setbacks. But the reason for the setback request is to save the 2 large growth oak trees on the frontage of the property, the 30-inch. And then there's also an existing buffer on the right side of the property. And there's a daycare center and an existing play yard right there. So the developer would like to kind of save that buffer along that edge. So that ultimately that's the reason for the request to push the building back and also to the side and ask for the variance for the side setback. Again, we could build the same building. We can even build the building bigger by pushing to the front and making it wider, and which would be more square footage and beneficial to the builder. But the builder will prefer to save the 2 trees in the front. I mean, there's not that many trees like that along West Avenue, and also the adjacent buildings next to or along West Avenue. The setbacks are about the same, 20 to 25 feet setback, so it kind of conform with the existing buildings along that existing road.
Any questions of Mr. Burns? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody in the audience would like to speak for or against this project? Come on down, sir. If you can. Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. State your name and address, please.
William Maddox, 1882 Knobcone Avenue, North Augusta.
Knobcone?
Knobcone. I've been by that place, and if he places the apartments like he says he's going to do, all I'm considering is the increase in traffic, the parking. That side road, people fly down that road anyway, and the increased traffic there is going to put a lot of extra work for the traffic department, and all I can see is wrecks. I don't know if they studied any of the traffic patterns there for the upcoming increase in traffic there, even pedestrian traffic. I don't know who's going to be renting it, what age group is going to be, millennial types or not. But right now, there's quite a bit of traffic and wrecks in that particular corner already. So I'm just looking at the traffic.
Are you talking about the little piece of property up here on West Avenue, or are
Yeah,
you talking about
right.
the Knobcone?
No, I'm talking about that piece of property.
Okay, that's good. I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
no, I ain't.
Okay.
I'm getting around to Knobcone pretty soon.
I figured
I'm talking
that
about.
too, but I
Look here,
lived on
I'm
Knobcone.
everywhere.
Yes.
I'm everywhere around this county, and I worked for the government, 50 years, and they had me doing everything, from drug enforcement to whatever they wanted me to do, and I see a problem. I see a problem for the police department, and traffic control. Now, you're going to have to do something there, because if you ever turn out of that road, that little suicide lane, it helps a little bit, but you add another 20 cars there, it's going to be a problem. That's all I have to say about it.
Thank you, sir.
Just, I think about the people in pain. I've been in a lot of pain. I've been blown up several times.
Yes, sir.
I know.
I will, let me just address the traffic. While, since he brought it up, I wasn't going to say much about it, but for those of you in the audience and people listening at home, this variance has nothing to do with traffic. And I got him to admit a few minutes ago that he could build this project without these variances. We can't address traffic. That's something that the Planning Commission has to do when they have the plans. That's something that City Council has to do. That's something the Department of Highway Department for the state of Georgia, I started to say Georgia, but the state of South Carolina. Nothing we do tonight affects traffic one way or the other. And I agree 100% with you. There's going to be it's a lot of traffic up there. The dance studio already has a problem, and that's trying to be addressed. I drove by there a while ago, and there was 5 parking spaces left. but that's not anything that we can consider. The zoning district that's being built in allows no parking, it doesn't have to have any parking spaces designated for that particular building. It's just like if they build something on George Avenue downtown. They build it right up to the sidewalk, they don't have to worry about parking. There's not any, but they don't have to worry about it. So I wanted to make sure everybody understood that. Nothing we do tonight has anything to do with changing the traffic or the parking, or nothing we can do to stop the changing or the traffic or anything else up there. All we are considering is, can we give him a setback to save the trees and build his same apartments that he would build if we don't give him the variance? Now, anyone else like to come down and speak? Come on down. Absolutely. Raise your right hand, please.
Yep.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
So help you God.
Yes, sir.
State your name and address, please.
Robert London, 302 West Avenue. I think it's a great idea, saving the trees. I love the West Avenue side roads. We do have a lot of dilapidated buildings. If you look at, I'm not going to call out certain homeowners, but there are some buildings that are not keeping up with the times. It's a gorgeous building. They have one similar down in Hammond's Ferry. I think it'd be great for the neighborhood, great for the community, and it obviously is going to look awesome with the 2 trees up front. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. Anybody else like to speak for or against it? Do we have any questions of anybody so far? We may ask, while we deliberate, we may ask the developer or Mr. Paradise some questions. They both have already spoken, but we may ask them again. With that, if nobody else wants to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Now we'll go into the deliberation. And what I need to do now is I need to read, to get a variance, there are 10 items that we have to find for in the affirmative. And this is state law. We have to find in the affirmative for all 10 of them. Or if at any one of them we can't find in the affirmative, the variance can't be granted. So I'll read what we have to find for. Number 1 is an unnecessary hardship exists. Number 2, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. Number 3, the conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Number 4 is because of the conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Number 5, the authorization of this variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale and the creation or potential for the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, and incompatibility late night activity. Number 6 doesn't apply. That usually goes with signs, but we don't have any signs in this case, so it doesn't apply. The Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance in effect, which would be to A, to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district. B, to extend physically a non-conforming use of land. Or C, to change zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. Number 8, if the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance should not be granted. The fact that the property may be used more profitably should a variance be granted shall not be considered grounds for a variance. That's number 9. Number 10, in granting of the variance, the Board of Zoning Appeals may attach to it such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed building, structure, or use the board may consider advisable to promote the public health, safety, or general welfare. Again, based on these findings of fact, the Zoning Board of Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny the request. So with that, what this body has chose to do is we take them one at a time, and if we come to one that we find in the negative or no, we stop at that point and we make a motion not to grant the variance. Okay. Number one, an unnecessary hardship exists. The applicant states that the adherence to the overall district standards prohibits the preservation of two existing old growth oak trees along the frontage and existing vegetation along the side property line adjacent to the child care play yard. Staff notes that the required setback poses challenges to site preservation in an infill development scenario.
I would agree with that. With the applicant's view, somebody might read it and say, well, there's no unnecessary hardship. They can build it according to the zoning standards, as you mentioned, to start off with, and as you asked Mr. Paradise. But you have to look at why the applicant has made the request for the variance, which is he wants to preserve trees if at all possible. And that's the primary reason. And obviously, in my view, an unnecessary hardship exists to do that, because if the building is basically zero lot line, those trees are gonna be gone. So I think there's no problem with number one.
I have no issue with number one either.
We agree on that one. Number two, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. The applicant states that very few old growth trees remain along the street, and utilizing the existing landscape is beneficial to the surrounding properties. Staff notes that the D, Downtown Mixed-Use Zoning District, requires buildings to conform to the design standards established for either the G, Georgia Avenue Overlay District, or the NP, Neighborhood Preservation Overlay District, and that adherence to the Georgia Avenue Overlay standards poses challenges to the preservation of the tree along the street frontage. And I don't have a problem with that one either.
I have no issues either.
Number three is these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. The applicant states that because the property is infill and must comply with either the Georgia Avenue Overlay or Neighborhood Preservation Overlay standards, existing properties are not affected by the same conditions. Staff notes that other downtown townhome projects have been referred to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance to the lot width requirements of Table 3.3, dimensional standards, but that not all properties in the surrounding area have the unique challenge of the same maximum front setbacks required by the downtown mixed-use district, since most parcels have existing buildings. I guess there's only one other vacant lot on that, it's on one side, or is there two there?
There's one other one.
Yeah, but it's a parking lot now, isn't it?
No, sir. There's, let me find. It is, here we go. It's a vacant lot. You can see the, let's see if that show up. Nope. Right below the parcel is a vacant parcel. It's dirt. And then you get down to the dance studio.
And this lot at one time held construction, it was like a yard. It was like a laydown yard or something for construction. And I think the one next to it is the same way.
It might be.
Yeah.
It looks that way. But they are two separate parcels.
Right.
Those trees are unique to that property.
Hmm.
Those trees are unique to that property.
That's
So
right.
I
They
have
are
no issue
unique.
number three.
They're the only trees. We agree with number three? Number four, because of the conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of this property. The applicant states a front setback that is closer to the street would result in loss of trees and vegetative screening that, utilizing the neighborhood preservation overlay standards, would reduce the amount of building space, increase impervious surfaces, and reduce landscaping areas to accomplish the same townhome footprint. Staff notes that the development code poses challenges for the modern townhome development on infill lots.
I'm okay with number 4.
Scott?
I-
I am too. There's really no change in at all in how the property's being used.
Right.
It's just, you're just shifting the footprint.
Okay, I'll go along with that. Number 5, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale and the creation or potential of the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, or incompatible late-night activity. The applicant states surrounding building setbacks on the block range from 12 feet to 30 feet, and that using a 20-foot minimum building setback does not impact the visual presence of the existing buildings. The child care play center would benefit from preserving the existing vegetative screening along the property line. Staff notes that this block of West Avenue has a mix of commercial and residential uses that utilize various building setbacks. There are no buildings that currently utilize the minimum setback of 0 to 5 for the D downtown mixed development use.
I think a strong argument could be made that the granting of the variance increases the public good as far as the environment goes. Protect as many slow growth hardwoods as possible.
Right. I agree with that.
I'm good.
And also, parking traffic is really not going to change because there's a certain number of spaces, and once they fill up, there's going to be no more parking on West Avenue anyway, so. I agree with that. Number 6, as I stated before, is not applicable. It's about signs. Number 7, the Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to A, allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted, we're not doing that. To extend physically a non-conforming use of land, we're not doing that. Or to change the zoning district boundaries, we're not doing that, so that one is okay. Number 8, if the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed, the applicant of the variance should not be granted. Staff notes that the request is related to the preservation of vegetation on site and working with the constraints of the development code. I have no problem with that one whatsoever because he can build his buildings and cut the trees down, and I appreciate him keeping.
Agree.
Exactly.
Number 9, the fact that the property may be utilized more profitable should a variance be granted shall not be considered grounds for a variance. Staff recognizes that property may be used more profitably developed, but is not the sole grounds for the variance request. I don't either, that one's okay.
Good.
Number 10, in the granting of a variance, the Board of Zoning Appeals may attach to such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed building, structure, or use as the board may consider advisable to promote the public health, safety, or general welfare. Staff notes the approval is subject to site plan review and approval by staff. Any plan submitted will be required to meet all other requirements of the North Augusta Development Code. The applicant has not provided a complete set of civil sets for the review of this time. Staff recommends the following conditions for approval. The development plan for the project will be generally shown as a concept plan submitted to the BZA. I can agree to that.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so. I need a motion.
Based on the findings previously discussed and voted on, I move that application ZV 22-010, The Avenue, a request by Larry Meister for variance pursuant to sections Table 3-3, dimensional standards, maximum front setbacks for the D downtown mixed-use district, and Development Code Section 3.8.4.4.1.1, front setbacks, and 3.8.4.4.1.2, side setbacks for the Georgia Avenue Overlay District of the North Augusta Development Code to increase front and side setbacks be granted with the following condition. The development plan for the project will be as generally shown on the concept plan submitted to the BZA.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Is, Mr. Meister here? Yes, sir. You should be commended, sir, for keeping those trees. We appreciate it very much. Well, the BZA is too. If you look around the city, you'll see bulldozers everywhere just stripping everything down, and that's not good. Thank you very much. Okay. That's you, Tommy.
It must be.
I don't know what you're doing down there,
I don't know.
but we're gonna move you up here if you don't be quiet. Okay, the next one is ZV 22-011. A request by Panther Residential Management LLC and Integra Land Company for a variance from the maximum building height allowed by the Hamrick Farms PD and sections of the zoning development standards referenced herein. The application affects a proposed multifamily development located on West Martintown Road, a plus or minus 24.1 acre portion of the tax district 005 1701 1012, Zone PD, planned development. Again, we'll hold a public hearing for the purpose of hearing is to receive public comment on the application, and then we'll have the consideration. So with that, I will open the public hearing on this one. Y'all excuse us a minute, because there's about 1,000 pages that we got to get through to get to where we need to be now. Yeah, it's a bunch of them. Get to the right one. Aha, I think I found it. All right. Mr. Paradise, what would you like to tell us, sir?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is the multifamily portion of the Hamrick Farms. You may be familiar with this somewhat. It's the planned development that is at exit 1 between I-20 and Knobcone. And it's 24.1 acres. That's the multifamily portion of it. You can see the subject parcel kind of carved out here. It'd be interior to the development. This is the general vicinity map. This is the layout of or the preliminary layout of how the apartments will be. And this gives you an idea of the height of the apartments, to be 4 floors in elevation. Since it's in a planned development, it's regulated by that planned development general concept plan. And also the ordinance that was referenced in the ordinance adopting the plan is the zoning development ordinance, I think it is. And that's from, I believe, around 1996. The maximum height that is allowed is 45 feet in the multifamily district. Now, the 45 feet is not measured to the tip of the roof or the peak. It's actually measured halfway up. The applicant is requesting a variance to go from 45 feet to 51 feet to the midpoint of the roof, and actually to the peak would be 56 feet. But the way the zoning ordinance or the development code measures it, it would be 51 feet. Now, one of the changes here is that if this planned development was adopted today and was under our current development code regulations, the maximum height for the multifamily portion would be 65 feet. But because it's regulated by the pre-existing development code, they're limited to 45. And that's it for me, sir.
I don't want to get you to repeat yourself, but let me get you to repeat that.
All right.
No, you're saying that when the PD was approved back in, 15, 12 years ago, whenever, this applied, if it was a new PD coming in today, it wouldn't, that roof height restriction wouldn't be applicable?
Well, the roof height, if we did the same thing, and it came in today, the maximum building height for multifamily is 65 feet. If you go to the R5 district, which is what they did for the PD in this case, and I forget what it was called then. But if you go to the R5 district now, which is multifamily, the maximum height is 65 feet.
So,
Let me make sure I understand that now. You're saying that if our city zoning map changed today and a new R5 was put in this location, or any location, the height would then be 65?
Correct.
Okay.
so R5 is the equivalent of what it was back in 86.
Yes.
Whenever that was R4 is what they referenced at the time or something.
Not for sure. I'm still learning the code we're in.
But it's the equivalent of what it was back.
Yeah, the equivalent zoning district then was 45. Now that same partner is 65.
But the ordinance was referencing a 1996 code that called for the 45.
Correct.
What do you think the new one's gonna have?
I don't see them changing the building height.
Any other questions of Tony? We may come back to it.
Yes.
Developer, would you like to say something, sir? Come on down. Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name and address.
Eric Wardrop, I'm with Panther Residential. So I just want to say the current design that we have up here, essentially we're just asking for the additional height to capture the 6 by 12 roof pitch, which is more consistent with the architectural in this area.
All right, let me just stop you right there.
Yep.
I think I know what I'm saying, but maybe I don't. You can build that building right now with a flat roof and not worry about it.
Correct.
Okay, I want everybody to hear that. Go ahead.
And essentially, and there is a flat portion of this roof, and what we do is we actually take all the AC condenser units and we put them in a flat roof in the middle of these buildings so they're not all scattered throughout the property. which obviously is a better look. And it's, from our standpoint, we've toured this market. A flat roof doesn't necessarily conform with what the other apartment buildings in this area are. So our goal is to have a pitched roof, which is a much more appealing look, we believe. But again, we can build a 4-story building, and when the original PD was approved, it was approved, and it said it was anticipated to have 4-story buildings, with a total of 384 units. And our total unit count here is only 343. We are maximizing all of the surrounding tree buffers. And then one other note, this site actually will sit below the main road grade. So if you were to be at the main road looking at this building, it's not going to be a monstrosity because it sits much lower than the main grade.
So how many,
Wait, sir, we got some questions.
so how many 4-story buildings?
7 total.
You know what was in the original plan?
Um,
'Cause it said 3 and 4-story. It was a mixture.
Yeah, we have a mixture as well.
Okay.
So there's 7 main residential buildings, and then we have kind of sporadic throughout. You can kind of see them on this side over here. Those are garage buildings, which will be a 1-story garage setup. So you'll have like 4 garages with 1 story, and it should be in here. We also have what we call carriage units, which are 2 and 3 story, essentially a townhome looking building with 4 garages underneath, which are attached to those units that sit above them. So there's 2 units that sit above those. And we use those buildings to kind of break up the site a little bit. And they kind of are set, like if you look at the site plan, they're kind of sporadic throughout. But we've oriented all of the buildings to have all the garages away from the main road. So I think, from the road side, you are not going to see 4 stories. You'd probably get, a side profile of about 3, and then the pitched roof, just because of the elevation change.
So with the reduced number of units, are there less buildings than what was originally planned?
I mean, we couldn't fit any more units in
Okay.
here. If you notice in the middle, that's all green space, and then all the surrounding buffer. Our goal is to keep as many trees as possible. So there will be a tree survey done on this property. Any type of large specimen trees that we can save, we will save. And then this area in the center is going to be our retention. So that'll be a kind of a green space, open area with a wet retention pond.
So the ordinance and everything referenced the original plan, and it was based off of 384 units, and you got 343.
Correct.
41 less, okay.
And yeah, that's correct.
Just for general information, I did talk to Chief Thomas about fire protection in there, and we do have the proper equipment to the top of the building without any problem.
And that was one area that one of our guys had done some research and found some, I don't know if there's any official documentation, but back when this was approved, I think there was an issue reaching, above the 45 feet with the fire equipment. So again, I don't know if that's specifically why it was limited to the 45 feet, but in this case, all these buildings are sprinklered as well.
Any other questions?
Not right now.
We may ask you a question later.
Thank you.
Anyone here want to speak for or against? I'll go with the fours first. That may be fewer. Anybody want to speak here against this project or have questions about it? Now's the time to come down and ask them. You can come again, sir. You have already been sworn in, so I won't ask you to do that again.
Okay.
But I will say this. I'll give anybody time that wants to talk. I'll give you as much time as you want to. I just say, try not to make the same argument or for or against that somebody else has done.
All right.
And please remember, wait a second. Please remember, there is absolutely nothing this body can do about the traffic,
Oh, yeah.
one way or the other.
when we bought our house, which is that little space right there, you see, I'll show you a little, right here.
Mr. Chairman, that would be, if you look on the, to the left diagram, it is the, on knob cone at the bottom there, that's by itself kind of an island there, the single family.
And that other space is my neighbor, which they say they're gonna take that neighbor away. He can't take him away because he just moved in. That's a mistake. And that's been a mistake ever since, Ray moved away and that, another veteran moved in. And, he's real happy with his home, but, he just realized, his house is designated to be moved out. Now, when I moved in, they said my house was one of the last houses to be sold in wetlands. Now, to the left of my house is wetlands. Wetlands, I'm telling you, it is wetlands. And behind my house is a creek. Now, the creek is running all the time, and it was a beaver dam on the other side of the road that the Morrisons decided that it was bothering them. So they brought the Department of Agriculture in, or whatever what they did, and they poisoned the beaver dam, the beavers. And they are all gone now, and they tore up the dam. But in that wetland area, there's turkeys and all the other kind. And the environmental people have called us 100 times to ask us if we have, they wanted to interview us about the environment in that area. And all of a sudden, poof, they quit. And we didn't understand that. They wanted to come and ask us about it. But politics in this area is a lot different. I've been in 16 different countries in my little stint with the government, doing odds and ends that I can't tell you about. But I can understand how politics works when somebody just asks you for information and stops, and I can understand it when he talks. So a lot of this wetlands is going to be where they're going to build these apartments is not wetlands anymore. They're going to put apartments in that wetlands. And there's trees and wildlife, and we have deer running through the yard, turkeys running through the yard, and whatever. I don't shoot them. I go someplace else to get my deer. I don't shoot out of my backyard to kill deer. But anyway, or turkeys, or whatever. Now, I like the police department, and Knobcone is a speedway. And the way they have these roads laid out in between these apartments, it is ridiculous. The way they got them, and they have spent some money on surveyors. There's been a dozen surveyors coming in there. Of course, I got a friend of mine, which was Mars, come in and re-tag the old tags where my lots are, my lot is. And, because he was in Young Life, and I was in Young Life when I was just a chap in this area one time. I was one of the supervisors there. Anyway, that's it. Anyway, he put some tags. Then Felix, he came with a surveyor to put another mark down to show the angle of where one angle to another angle to show that they didn't go straight across. It was at an angle, and I already knew that. Anyway, I tried to get him on the telephone. You have to have a code number to get a hold of him. I understand, but the whole deal is that next door neighbor thing has got to be fixed, because they're not going to move him unless they buy that place. And if because I paid a lot of money for it, and I done put another $20,000 in it to bring my wetlands out of wetlands. If you don't believe that, call the truckers brought the dirt in. That's all I have to say, that this drawing is wrong. And you have to also worry about most of all these lines up to Welling, Knobcone, count up about 6 or 8 houses, all on septic tanks. There's no sewer line to run. There's no gas line run. And you're gonna have to run sewage and a bigger water line over there, and I don't know where you're gonna run it. And that little squiggly line going up through there, I don't know what you're gonna put in that little squiggly line, but you've got a big water line and a big sewer line you're gonna have to run. And to get these people off the septic tanks, that's gonna be hard to do, because the city's gonna have to pay, charge a lot to get these people off, and they're gonna not wanna pay it, because everybody in there is old or retired military, or just pure retired. Y'all know what they retired. I heard y'all talking about being retired. You know what a fixed income is. I'm still getting paid by the government. I don't care. I mean, I've worked for them for more than 50 years, and I'm still working for them. And it's stupid work that they call me to do, but it ain't in the United States, and I'm tired of working for them.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you for the information. We appreciate it very much.
I got
Thank you.
Prompts a question, though.
Yeah, we do have a question for you. Hold on.
Oh, not him.
Oh, no, that's okay. Thank you. We got it.
Is the access roads to this, is
That's
that part of this development here, or is that another phase?
So this development is 3 separate individual groups. So our parcel here, we own. The front 2 parcels are owned by McKnight Properties, and that's the commercial piece. So that's a grocery anchored shopping center, some out parcels, probably some strip. And then the back piece, which is this big, large piece here that says mixed use, that's all single family, and that's owned by Stanley Martin.
So when does the access road get built?
So the access road, so the way that this project is being basically laid out and designed is as 3 different groups. We're all coming together, and it's essentially we're all contributing a third to all of that. So all of those roads and everything are going to actually go in before we would be opening, because we can't open without those access roads.
All right, so my next question is the ordinance attached to it, for reference, was the original narrative plan for the whole development, which included a traffic study in there. And the traffic study acknowledged it's gonna be a lot of traffic. And there were some recommendations. And then in the ordinance said the developer was responsible for all the recommendations, all the improvements that had to be done, if I read it right. So, and it was a lot. So I think it's reasonable to expect that the traffic study may need to be redone as part of this, because traffic has changed over the last, since '86.
Mr. Skaggs, if I can address both of your questions, is one, we received an updated traffic TIA, or traffic impact analysis, this morning. We were talking with the developers, and we're going through that now to see if it's one we can use or if we're going to need additional information. As far as the development, there is several different entities at play here. We have the plans that we're working with Prather or Panther?
We're Panther.
Panther.
Prather was the broker.
Okay, Panther.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I
very
get you
close.
confused.
No,
Panther is doing the parcel for the apartments. They're the multifamily builder. As you'll notice where it says subject parcel, see the squiggly line that comes out to the road to Knobcone? That was because we would not sign off on the subdivision of land without some kind of street frontage. And that was, what they did was they followed the proposed road to get them that street frontage. We have a set of plans that has been submitted for the development. It has been sent back for comments. We've received the second set, and this is not the multifamily, this is for the overall development. And I think there is some confusion there, because what we're needing is a preliminary plat, for the entire subdivision or the main roads that subdivides the parcels and the roads and where the water lines are going and all of the infrastructure. And what we've seen so far hasn't given us that information, and so, you know, it's probably going to get sent back for comments again. But that will have to be in place before we will allow the construction to begin on the apartments. The infrastructure will need to either be in place or a performance bond submitted to or a performance guarantee with a letter of credit given to the city for those improvements in case for some reason the developer walks away and doesn't put those in. So we've still got a bunch of pieces to do, and the multifamily, to be honest with you, is ahead of the game on the overall project, but that's fine. I'm afraid they're going to have to wait when we get down a little bit later, but we move to projects as they're submitted. Does that help you any?
Yeah, but so the new traffic study,
Yes, sir.
once you're happy with it, if
We are looking, what the new traffic study proposes, I think this is what you're getting to, is there will be a right turn at the eastbound exit ramp of I-20. There would be another leg of the traffic signal added that would allow enter and exit to the development there. It would have 2 lanes exiting to turn left at that light, and then there will be a right turn only lane there as well. There is some questions with conflict on the turn lane for the access to the eastbound lane on-ramp for I-20. There's working DOT's making those calls. There's a right in, right out required at the across from Plantation Drive, and there's another right in, right out. I believe it's around the Waffle House, and then a traffic signal at Knobcone. So, and it's still in play whether or not a requirement to signalize the traffic light signalize the intersection of the westbound off-ramp of I-20 at Martintown. So there's a lot of improvements that's going with this project that may be tied to the developer. The developer, I believe, has some issues with the off-ramp light, and that's the discussion he's with DOT. But we anticipate these improvements to be implemented. On the other side of the coin, full disclosure, we anticipate phase 2 of River Falls, which is on Frontage Road. Before that is complete, they would have a right in, right out only for Frontage Road. And there would be a raised median there from Frontage Road down to Knobcone. And so, you know, you wouldn't be able to make any left turns there anyway. So that's the traffic improvements that's scheduled there. That goes along with the Martintown Road Corridor Study. There's some other improvements in there that we would like to make, but these would be the ones specific to Martintown Road.
So the traffic improvements are part of this whole development. So when these apartments are built, all those improvements would be in place.
Not necessarily when the apartments are built, but at the completion of the development, all of these should be implemented. Because They won't do them all at once because the traffic impact isn't there day one.
Okay.
But if you build the apartments and then you build all the commercial out front, you're gonna need all of that stuff. But just the apartments probably wouldn't trigger all of that. And that's where we would look at the impact analysis and the big holdup on it right now is DOT and two holdups. DOT with the conflict with the onbound or access lane, the eastbound I-20, that turning lane there. As it's shown, the road entering it would actually go across that, and when you turned out, you'd be turning into that turning lane, and then whether or not they will require a traffic signal at the westbound exit. So those two things are in play, so to speak. The developer does not have a problem with the signalization and the improvements at the development. He does have some issues and some discussions about the one at the westbound off-ramp.
Will you be able to tell anything from the traffic study if, whether there's a problem when the apartments are built before everything else?
We'll look at it.
Okay.
At that point, the other thing too is we may or may not have access, the road to Knobcone may or may not be in at that time. So if it's not in at that time, it's hard to make them pay for the light at Knobcone. But if it is, we would, and that goes back to trying to get the light at Knobcone. The other thing is we don't own the road. We got to get DOT approval. And we have been told that I think it's fair to say that council would like to see a light at Knobcone and Martintown Road. My understanding is that we have been told by DOT that if we had the money and wanted to put one today at Knobcone, they would say no, because it doesn't meet the warrant, the engineering necessity. So before, I don't want to make promises I can't keep. So you've got to get DOT to check the box on that light going there as well. Is that clear as mud,
Would
so
the
to speak?
traffic study help put it over the,
It is. I was looking at that particular intersection today in the traffic study, glancing through it, and I don't think it's going to trip it, because they did do a warrant study on that intersection.
thank you.
We digressed, but we got a lot of information we wouldn't have had if he hadn't asked a question. Thank you, that's all. Anybody else? Now that you've heard about the traffic, you want to ask a question? Sir? That's what he just got. He just got
it.
just got one today. They sent him in today. That's what he was talking about. Okay. No one else wants to speak for or against the apartments, the variance? That's correct, sir. That's exactly right. All right, if nobody else wants to speak, I will close the public hearing and we'll have the consideration, excuse me. I'm not going to read the 10 reasons again, because we'll go through them one by one. We heard them all at the beginning. So I will, we'll have our consideration, and I'll read them, and then we'll consider it. Okay, number one is an unnecessary hardship exists. The applicant states that the hardship is created by the specifications of the code to have a 6.5 foot, 6/12 Roof pitch. Staff notes that a pitched roof may be more consistent with the architectural style of residential structures in the city, and that not all developments are held to the same height restrictions as the ZDO's, a former version of the development code that regulates the Hamrick Farms PD. What do y'all think about that one? Any questions on that?
That's it. I don't have issues.
Number two, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property.
I would qualify that. I know that's a generalized statement. I would qualify it by saying, given the building of the, or intended building of the apartments, and they are an accepted use for that property, there would be a rather difficult restriction to overcome when newer codes don't seem to have that same restriction anyway. That's a roundabout way of saying I would agree with that.
How about you, Kevin, any questions on that?
Yeah, I agree with the applicant's statement there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read it or not.
Yeah, I did. I'll read it out again. The applicant states that development code and PD districts development to either a 4-story structure with a flat roof or a 3-story structure that meets the maximum height requirements, and that neither is the best solution for this site. Staff notes that the planned development general development plans add extra conditions to the development of multifamily projects on the site.
I have no issues with them.
Number three, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. The applicant states that the Hamrick Farms PD development will have a commercial buildings that allow a greater building height than what is proposed for the apartments. The applicant has arranged the site to match the 4-story buildings towards the center. Staff notes that the Hamrick Farms PD does not apply to nearby properties and that other parcels in the vicinity would be developed based on the constraints of the current North Augusta Development Code and not the 1996 ZDSO. Staff also notes that multifamily housing developed in the equivalent R5 mixed residential zoning district would allow for a maximum height building of 65 feet. Are we okay with that one?
I'm okay, that ordinance is particular, this piece of property.
Yep. Because of the conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. The applicant states the restrictions prohibit correct scale, style, and proportions. Staff notes that a maximum building height limits the amount of stories that can be constructed because of the required pitched roof.
I think it's also important that he's not doing it to increase the number of units.
Right.
The number of units is going down,
It's
so
down, that's correct.
abusing this.
We okay with that one, Bill?
I'm good.
Number five, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale and the creation or potential for the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, or incompatible late-night activity. The applicant states his request is not for an additional story, but rather for architectural pleasing design. Staff notes that there are existing and proposed apartment complexes in the area that are found nearby primarily single-family detached residential subdivisions. The development will have to adhere to the guidelines for the site lighting and traffic mitigations as needed. I'm okay with that.
I don't know that the change in roof height trips any of those.
Number 6 is not applicable. That is, again, about signs. The Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance that the effect of which would be to, A, allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted. We're not doing that. B, to extend physically a non-conforming use of the land, we're not doing that. Or to change the zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map, and we're not doing that. Number 8, if the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance should not be granted. He's definitely not doing that. Because he can put a flat roof and build his building. The fact that the property may be utilized more profitable should a variance be granted shall not be considered grounds for a variance.
Other than street appeal, I don't think this has anything to do with profitability.
Right.
I agree.
Number 10, in granting the variance, the Board of Zoning Appeals may attach to it such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed building, structure, or use as the board may consider advisable to promote the public health, safety, or general welfare. Staff notes the approval of subject is subject to major site plan review and approval by the Planning Commission. Any plan submitted will be required to meet all other requirements of the plan general development plan for Hamrick Farms and the codes referenced herein. The applicant has provided a complete civil set that is under staff review at this time. Staff recommends the following conditions of approval. Number 1, the development plan for the project will be generally shown on the concept plan submitted to the BZA. Was that the only one? Okay. I'm okay with that one, fine. With just adding that, I think that whole staff note needs to be put in there. Any plans?
Any plans submitted will be required to meet all other requirements of the plan development, general
Right.
development plan. Starting there.
Yeah. Are we okay with number 10? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Yes. Based on the findings previously discussed and voted on, I move that application number ZV 22-011, a request by Panther Residential Management for variance pursuant to section, the Hamrick Farms Multifamily PD NEDC section 7.2 multifamily residential design of the North Augusta Development Code to increase the maximum building height be granted with the following conditions, and there are 2. Number 1, the development plan for the project will be as generally shown on the concept plan submitted to the BZA. And number 2, any plans submitted will be required to meet all other requirements of the general development plan for Hamrick Farms and the codes referenced therein.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion about it? All in favor, signify by
Aye.
aye. Pass unanimous. Welcome to North Augusta, sir. Okay, we have one more to hear. This one is ZB 22-012, a request by North Augusta Project LLC for a variance from the average and maximum light levels required in section 7.4, table 7-2, exterior lighting levels of the North Augusta Development Code. The application affects a proposed car dealership on plus or minus 9.58 acres of land located at 5585 Jefferson Davis Highway. Tax number, parcel number 013-19-02-001. It's zone TC, thoroughfare commercial, and is within the Highway Corridor Overlay District. I will now open the public hearing, for the purpose of hearing to receive public comment on the application. Public hearing is now open. What can you tell us about this, Mr. Paradise?
Mr. Chairman, this is, and y'all may remember a few months back, a Kia variance for lighting, and this is very similar. This parcel is the Hyundai,
Hyundai.
yeah, I'll get it in a minute there, boss. Hyundai, it's located on the southeast corner of I-520 and Jefferson Davis Highway. You may remember that this car lot or car dealership commenced construction and was delayed for a period of time and has started back in the last year, and they are down to requesting their final certificate of occupancy. One thing that they are requesting is to increase their lighting levels so that there's more lighting on the vehicles that are out there on display for sales. You can see the lighting levels from 7-2, and this is what is the, and I'm not for sure, the engineer can explain to us what IES is, but it is an industry standard of lighting levels. So basically that is what it's all about, is to increase the lighting so to something similar to what they have at some of the other car lots, or my understanding is they have at the other car lots. It will have a maximum of 41.5 foot candles, and right now our plans are showing an average lighting of 14.4 foot candles for the site. And the engineer is here that can probably explain it better than me.
Any questions of Tommy before? Yes, sir, would you come down? We finally have a lighting engineer here. We can quiz.
Y'all might recognize me.
Yeah.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
State your name and address.
Clay Blanton, and my address is 1296 Broad Street, Augusta, Georgia. So, we're not going to say a lot. I'm hoping some of this will be on precedence with the Kia dealership. Y'all recognize me from that. But the lighting levels for this one were designed significantly lower than Kia as well. So we're only asking for an average of 15 lumens per square foot. And so I'll answer any questions that y'all have.
Will these be the kind of lights that sort of, all the brightness goes down?
Yes, sir. They're already
The other places.
They're already installed out there, and they have a chip built onto them that you can adjust the lighting levels on it. So we kind of we're hoping that we could raise it up, and if we couldn't, we'd just program it down. So if there's any questions I can answer.
Any questions?
So, you're looking for 41.5 foot candles? Is that
That's just the maximum. We're
Okay.
looking for a 15 average.
foot candles?
Foot candles, yes, sir.
So just for precedent purposes, what we did back in, I guess it was early this year, March, in the March meeting,
Yes, sir.
the other site was looking for a lighting level of 35 to 75 foot candles for parking lots and outdoor inventory, and the average light levels for outdoor display of the merchandise. Well, that was what the code was.
The Kia was designed to about around 50 lumens per foot. So FC.
Okay, so you're less than,
We're less
you're
than
sitting, you're in, but as far as precedent goes, you're
We-
within that same range.
Yes, sir. Hyundai was designed before Kia, and you'd be betting a lot of money in the different design to bump it up all the way up to 50. And so we kind of bumped it up some, to 15, with the ability to program it down if we didn't get the variance.
Okay. I'm good.
We had one other one too. We did the Walmart out at X5. They came in for the same type stuff. You need a lighting expert on your staff. Yeah, and a traffic engineer too. You're trying to build a dynasty here. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it very much, Clay. We may ask you some more questions as we deliberate this. Anybody else? Any other questions of anybody before I close the public hearing? Close the public hearing. So now we'll have the deliberation. Again, I'm not gonna read all 10 again. We'll read them one at a time and deliberate one at a time and handle them. Number 1 is unnecessary hardship exists. The applicant states that the inventory for sale is not highlighted or highly visible during the nighttime sales hours. Staff notes that the recommendation lighting levels from the Illuminating Engineers Society, IES, are significantly higher than what is recommended by the North Augusta Development Code.
Based on precedent,
Brace-
I'd say I don't have issues with this one.
Right.
Precedent's been set. The key.
And everybody seems to want more lights than what
Mhm.
we were, okay.
But it's not more than what the other one does.
No, it's not more than that, but I mean, everybody wants more lights.
Right.
We need to change our code at some point in time, like when the new one comes out. Number 2, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular property. The applicant states that surrounding parcels are all automobile dealership having similar buildings and site features similar to the lighting levels requested in the variance. Staff notes that the parcel is located in a commercial industrial area adjacent to an interstate, and that impacts to residential properties are minimal.
No issues with me.
Number 3, the conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. The applicant states that the properties across the street and adjacent to the site are all car dealerships will have an outdoor merchandise display and hours of operation that occur after sunset. Staff notes that the prescribed maximum lighting levels are dependent on the specific site layout for the proposed use, and not all of the developments are subject to the exact conditions.
Notwithstanding staff's notes, I think that is true. But I would believe that, especially being on the corner, this area is susceptible to more casual traffic, let's say.
Right.
And I think it probably is a security feature as well as a display feature. I don't know if that was mentioned, but that's just my overall observation.
Yeah, I think for safety reasons, that's a good idea.
I'm good with that. No issues.
Good, okay. Number 4, because of the conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. The applicant states inventory for sale is not highlighted or highly visible during the nighttime sales hours. Staff didn't say anything about that one. I think because we've already granted this
Yeah.
type of
Precedent.
places, we've set the precedent.
Yep.
These conditions are okay. Number 5, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale and the creation or potential for creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, or incompatible late-night activities. The applicant states granting the variance request will not be of substantial detriment to the surrounding areas because all of the adjacent properties are also all car dealerships. Staff notes that the prescribed maximum lighting levels are dependent on the specific site layout for the proposed use, and not all developments are subject to the exact conditions. And I think in this case, we gotta go with what the expert thinks needs this type of lighting.
Yes, and it's within the precedent.
Yep.
Already
It's
said.
already in the precedent. Number 6 is not applicable. Number 7 is the Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance, effectively would. A is to establish the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in the zoning district, we're not doing that. B, to extend physical non-conforming use of the land, we're not doing that. Or to C, to change the zoning boundaries shown on the official zoning map, we're not doing that. So that's okay. Number 8, If the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance should not be granted. The applicant state this hardship is created by the requirements of the development code. And again, we have no staff comments on that one. I think I agree with the.
I agree with the statement.
With the, with the,
I think we all know the lighting has changed significantly probably since the present development code. It's really changed in the last few years, and they can do so much more with it. I don't have any problem with that.
okay, number 9, the fact that the property may be utilized more profitable should a variance be granted shall not be considered. It's probably being used for as much profitability as we can get out of it now. We okay with that one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Number 10, in granting a variance, the Board of Zoning Appeals may attach to it such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed building structure or use as the board may consider advisable to promote public health, safety, and general welfare. Staff notes the project was previously approved and is currently under development.
So there's no conditions
So
recommended.
we don't need any conditions, unless you got one.
Excuse me, let me let me turn my mic on. The one that we recommend is that the project be developed as shown on the photometric plan submitted to the BZA. That would override the current plan, and that condition, the thought behind that is then that would override the plan that's been signed off on that they've constructed.
We can add that.
It just
Okay.
clears up any question.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Yes, based on the findings previously discussed and voted on, I move that application number ZV 22-012, Hyundai Lighting, a request by NA Project LLC for a variance pursuant to section NADC Article 18, section 7.4, Table 7-2, lighting levels of the North Augusta Development Code to increase the maximum lighting levels be granted with the following condition, and we have one. The project will be developed as shown on the photometric plan submitted to the BZA.
You have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Pass unanimous. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Anything else we need to discuss tonight?
Not unless you have, or y'all have something for me.
Mr. Burkhalter? Skaggs?
Good.
I can't think of anything. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Meeting adjourned.